Hello, everyone. If you are with us today, you're reading the new Leading Impact Teams second edition. And today, I'm here with Gina Ferguson. She is one of our Impact Team national coaches. And then she also is an instructional coach at Park Middle School. Gina, just to get to know you a little bit, can you tell me a little bit what you've been doing at your particular school and your work in leading impact teams?
My current role is an instructional coach for 6-8. I work with all of our grade levels here in middle school in all content areas. So reading, math, science, exploratory, and our work with impact teams. We are really trying to look at where our students are currently performing and looking at all of our data and trying to choose the best plan forward to meet all of their needs.
And you do that specifically by setting up inquiry cycles with each grade level or course. Could you speak to us a little bit about the inquiry process that you've done?
Sure. I would go into a particular PLC and we would talk a little bit about what kind of issues or problems or puzzles they're trying to solve in their PLCs. And I really let the PLC drive that conversation. What do they feel most passionate about trying to, quote unquote, fix in their PLC? What do they want to improve upon? And then from there, we talk about ways that we can really make sure that that is the problem that the students really need solved.
So for an example on that, if you're noticing that the kids lack self-awareness, you might decide as a team this year, we're going to really be focusing on student reflection to build that self-awareness. That would be like kind of an example?
Yes, exactly. And particularly in one of my PLCs that we've really seen a lot of strong growth in, they really wanted to focus on having these conversations between students, the student-to-student peer and self-assessment, where they are reflecting on the rubrics and using that language and really giving each other strong feedback around a particular standard or SEL practice or something like that.
So another example would be like just the accountable talk piece, that could be an area you need. Teams could be focusing on accountable talk. The second thing that comes up a lot in conversations is the role of curriculum. Mm-hmm. And I know that with impact teams, the units of study are constantly evolving in terms of meeting the needs of your kids. And I know in your district, you adopted a new curricular resource last year. Could you kind of speak to the reader a little bit about this constant evolution of our curriculum in terms of the relationship between curricular needs and student need?
Right. Yeah. We just adopted a new curriculum last year. So this is our second year implementing it. And the first year, we really looked at what standards are being assessed in each unit of study, but then really thinking about our student population that was sitting in front of us right now and thinking about where is our students' current level of performance. What does the curriculum say they need to be? And really, what does the standard say they need to be? And how to get where our student population is now to the grade level expectation. How do we bridge those gaps and scaffolds so we are really meeting our students at where they're at and making sure they're moving along that progression?
How do you know that what the curriculum, if you're purchasing a resource, a textbook, a basal from a big company, how do you know if the way that they are teaching that particular standard and assessing that standard aligns with how the state or the district might be realizing or understanding that standard? Are there ways that you look to both to make sure that the kids are absolutely clear about what the standard is and how it will be assessed?
Yeah, we start with that work in the PLC and we go through an unpacking protocol and we really look at what the standard is asking for students to be able to do. And then as a PLC, we try to make teacher-generated examples of what we feel proficient should look like. And then we kind of match it to what the curriculum is asking our students to do. So we kind of look at the standard first and then the curriculum second. And above all of that, we look at where our students are at and who are our kids, what are their interests, what are their strengths, what do they feel about the subject, how do we make sure that our students are aware of why it's so important to learn this. So as a PLC, we unpack that and create some learning intentions and success criteria for the kids.
Is there another resource that sometimes you have to look at to say, hey, this is how the state is assessing us? This might give us clarity on how we need to teach it. Do you ever have to do that work? And what do you look to figure that out?
When we're looking at our data, that's kind of where that comes into play. We try to triangulate our data. We look at standardized assessments. We look at what the curriculum is asking our kids to do. We look at universal screeners and have these conversations and really look beyond what the standard is asking and what are those prerequisite skills that the kids might be missing that might be a barrier for them to access those skills that are needed. For example, our school right now is noticing a big push in these kids that are in this level one, the red students, and those students may not be able to access the standard at which their grade level is saying they should. And it's because they're missing some of those very basic decoding skills and phonics skills that are allowing them to access even the language of the curriculum.
So what I'm hearing you say is as we look to study what our kids need, sometimes the data isn't going to come right out and say, hey, they need help with decoding and encoding.
Yeah.
We have to think and be curious and look at that data and say, wow, all these students are scoring ones. Clearly, the resource that we're using isn't supporting the kids at their point of need. And clearly, what we might have been teaching isn't getting kids at their point of need. So we have to think beyond, the data, and we might have to investigate and figure out what those kids need by giving different kinds of assessments.
For sure. Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of that comes into focus when we are doing it an either pre-assessment or a mid-module assessment, where we then go into an EAA protocol and we are making some inferences about why students are performing at a certain level. But in those level ones and twos, those novice levels, we really need to dive deeper beyond just like, oh, they may not have understood the academic vocabulary, and look further and say, well, could they even decode that academic vocabulary?
I think that's been a big aha across the country, that a lot of the kids that were moving forward grade by grade by grade, were moved forward, but they never could really decode or encode. And so then the data is saying that they're doing terrible on these specific standards, but they can't even access and read the text and decode the text. So I think we're really finding that we have to triangulate and sometimes do more investigation to figure out how. So every single year, when you bring teams together, do you have to re-look at your curricular goals? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so we definitely re-look at all of our curricular goals. We re-examine our unpack standards. We will give a pre-assessment and match where our students are at and compare it, because every year it's like starting over. Every year it's a new group of kids, and we need to make sure that the curriculum and the text that we're giving kids and how we are going to be assessing them matches who's sitting in front of us in the classroom.
Thank you. That really helps a lot. And I'm sure you're going to see Gina in another part of the book.